come inside this audio and visual wonderland of mine, and welcome to the Chronicles from the Upper Deck podcast. I'm your host, Derrick. It's great to be here with you. We're at chapter 30. What a way to get to 30 episodes. It's crazy that when I started this podcast 2.5 years ago, never thought I would see 30 episodes. I thought it would just be 5 episodes, call it quits. But here we are, 30 episodes as we approach the end of 2024. Just totally grateful for all your support from family, friends, loved ones. Thank you guys so much. Luckily, we've been doing a lot of video stuff, so thank you for your support on YouTube as well. I thought I would I'd start this 30th episode, and I don't know if this will be my last one in 2024, but it's getting close to the end of 2024. So I'm like, I got to end it with the one of the biggest guests I've ever had on the show. And he'll make note of it too. Alan Shipnuck, who's a famed golf journalist, a Salinas Valley Sports Hall of Famer. I've known Alan for close to a decade. He was one of my amateur groupings at the First Tee Open, now known as the Pure Insurance Championship at Pebble Beach. Played together in 2015. I think that was just the golfing gods said we needed to meet. Alan's from my hometown. He worked for Sports Illustrated, Golf Magazine, Fire Pit Collective, and now he is dipping his toes into some other projects that he will talk about. He's also writing a new book. He's written 9 books. Of course, you know him, the Phil. By the way, let me get the Phil book out here. I didn't do it during our interview. Doesn't come up right there. The Phil book. Of course, you can see Phil, the Ripboard biography and unauthorized biography. He also most colorful superstar. He also wrote Live and Let Die. Of course, the continued divide of the PGA Tour and Live Golf. And yeah, he has some projects in the works. But Alan's always been a really good mentor to me as I've tried to crack and make a difference and find my path in the journalism game. And he's always responded to all my texts, and we've always just had a really good friendship, and I'm just grateful to have him in my life and grateful to have him on the show. He's a busy guy, as you guys can imagine, with what projects he's working on. So Alan Shipnuck is my guest today. We'll get to that a little bit later. Wanted to start off with two things. Number one was the 49er game on Sunday. That was just a butt whooping of the Chicago Bears. And I saw Caleb Williams play. I'm not going to make too much of it. I think, we clearly know what the Bears need. They need a patchwork offensive line. And obviously, I know they fired their head coach, Matt Eberflus, last week after his mishandling of the clock against the Lions on Thanksgiving. But I think for the Niners, I just got 3 simple words. Just went out. Just went out. I know the Seahawks beat the Cardinals yesterday in Glendale, and then obviously the Rams with a shocker win against the Bills. But Josh Allen is that dude. 6 total touchdowns to try to almost led him to a unbelievable comeback. But I just don't trust anybody in NFC West. Nobody's running away with it. I know the Seahawks have a 2-game lead, but they got the Vikings and Packers. Those are no cakewalks by any means. So the Niners just went out. That's all you can do is just went out. And, as long as you do that, never know. Currently, the Washington Commanders have the last wild card spot in 8-5. I don't know. Jaden Daniels, he looks to me like the complete quarterback that the Commanders haven't had in a while. Maybe going back to Robert Griffin III for a cup of coffee, but I don't know about the Commanders either. I think that's just the beauty of this NFC playoff picture. I think everybody knows it's the Chiefs, the Bills, and then the NFC. I think is just wide open. The Vikings have had some close calls, but their defense is elite, and I hope that defensive coordinator Brian Flores does get some head coaching consideration in the offseason. He deserves it. He deserves another shot after just I would just say an ugly divorce with the Miami Dolphins and just with him and the owner, Stephen Ross. The Packers, don't know. They look shaky. The Eagles have been rolling. I think Saquon Barkley's been the difference maker to me. He's the front runner for the MVP, but I know this is a quarterback league. They won't give it to him. Um, but for the Niners, I think it's just a win out, see what happens. I'm not gonna really make too light of the defensive line. 6 sacks against Caleb Williams, amazing. I think Purdy played efficient. George Kittle and Jawan Jennings had their best games of the year. Isaac Grando did solid work, even though he sprained his foot. And now, who's next on the running back carousel? That's Patrick Taylor Jr. Uh, yeah, this Niners team, I don't know. They're just an enigma. I think it's just been one of those seasons from I said in the last episode on chapter 29 where it's a crap storm. It's a crap storm from hell. But like I said, you can ride the ship, embrace the spoiler role. You got the Rams coming to town this Thursday night at Levi's, and then you got the Dolphins. That's an interesting. That'll be an interesting game in Miami. Um, and then the Lions come to town Monday Night Football, and then you got the Cardinals. So, all right, to me, you got at least 3 winnable games, maybe 4, and you'll need some help. We'll see if the Niners, the football gods, decide to turn their fortune around. But yeah, I loved what I saw this past weekend. Uh, there's going to be some interesting roster decisions, that's for sure, no matter how this season ends for the Niners. Might see a new kicker. I thought Moody's kickoffs were kind of bizarre. I don't know if he was trying to go for a squib kick or what happened, if we still feeling some effects from the ankle injury. He was perfect field goal wise. Um, but yeah, it's interesting to see just so much how much of a roller coaster, you know, this team has been on. And then we're gonna switch over things to baseball. I don't know if you heard the Juan Soto sweepstakes are over. Guess what? They ended in New York, but Juan Soto will be taking the subway train up to Queens. He signed a 15-year deal. Let me get that right. 15-year deal with the New York Mets, $765 million. That is the largest contract in professional sports history. Never thought I would see the day that happened. But yes, Juan Soto is now in New York Mets. And that deal has sent shockwaves, I think, through the sports world. It's interesting to see how the Mets are going to try to stand out. Obviously, you get basically your franchise star player, um, who's most likely going to play center field for the next decade plus. The Mets, I mean, just rode an unbelievable wave, from May on to an NLCS appearance. There were seventh in runs in season runs per game, fourth in the major leagues from May 29th to the end of the year. And this is just a who's who lineup. Now, obviously, I think the next question for the Mets is, you know, Pete Alonso, who has been kind of basically the nucleus of that offense, at first base. It'll be interesting to see where Alonso goes. I know the Giants could be an interested suitor. I don't know. Obviously, I would like to see the Giants maybe get a Christian Walker who could, has some pop from the D backs, but Pete Alonso's there. You got to take it. Maybe they'll slide Mark Vientos over if Alonso doesn't come back. But it'll be interesting. And, Soto could probably fit from 2 to 5 in the lineup. But if Alonso comes back, I think the Mets and Dodgers, you might pencil a little bit again for the NLCS in 2025. Man, it was just a shockwave deal. The Yankee fans are, I don't know how they're going to feel. Most likely you'll be hearing some boo birds during the Subway Series. But yeah, what a way to just kick off kind of the winter meetings going on this week down in Dallas. The Mets also need a DH, and also they got Clay Holmes too, Frankie Montas as well. So I think we thought, oh, this was a good run for the Mets. They're going to be a wild card team next year. No, Steve Cohen's like, push all the chips in, let's go all in. And so now the Mets are could be amazing. I don't know. It's going to be interesting for sure. My other signing that I saw while playing golf, and by the way, shout out to the Out Dynasty 831 for beating Hacktoy Die Golf again for the second consecutive GBH Cup, and I'll talk about that after the interview, is the Giants signed Willy Adames. largest contract in franchise history, the shortstop from the Milwaukee Brewers, 7 years, $182 million deals, which eclipse Buster Posey, who is now calling the shots as the president of baseball operations. And I think the Giants have been looking for something at shortstop since Brandon Crawford left, or he was kind of unceremoniously kind of forced out as they tried, to sack Carlos Correa in December 2022. We all know how that ended. Um, Adames, he's durable. He played 161 games last year. He's going to be there pretty much every day. Um, that it should be it's looking like a done deal. I know they got to go through some physical stuff, and what a way to just kind of pivot from the Blake Snell departure as Snell is going to the Dodgers. I really like the signing. I think you just signed kind of your superstar shortstop to pair along with Matt Chapman. That left side of the diamond will be there for the next, 5 to 8 years. I think it's just some stability. I think that's all the Giants fans really want is some stability on their team because, since what the dynastic days of 2016, it's just been kind of a revolving door. You start to see pieces of the championship core either get traded, get released, get sent down, or retire. And Brandon Crawford was like that last major piece um, in terms of the active roster. So Adames, he hit 32 home runs, 462 slugging percentage. He only has you know, career 63 at bats, career at bats at Oracle, 321 batting average, 381 on base average, 446 slugging percentage, 2 home runs. So um, I know Giant fans want power, but listen, embrace your ballpark. Get guys who can get on base, get a lot of hits, you know, get a lot of slugging, and embrace your ballpark. I think they kind of wanted to go for the big ticket attraction right away. Well, you just need to embrace it. I think Willie Adames is that perfect fit. Now the Giants do need starting pitching, whether that's through Corbin Burns, whether that's through Max Fried, you know, Buster Posey. I think he knows what he's doing. I think the questions will stop for now. Obviously, we'll see how they respond in terms of pitching. I do think they'll need a little bit of bullpen help there. And if Pete Alonso's there at first, take it, sign him. You're in an arms race with the Padres. You're in an arms race with the Dodgers in the National League West, and you could either keep up or step aside. I think the Giants are slowly stepping aside the shadows and now trying to keep up to kind of get to where the rivals at, which is contending for World Series championships, which the Dodgers have routinely done over the past 5 to 6, 7 years. The Giants, meanwhile, have had 2 playoff appearances in that timeline. So yeah, baseball is a wild sport. The spending's getting out of control. If only John Fisher knew that and realized he could have stayed in Oakland, but that's a different story for a different day. So coming up next, we have Alan Shipnuck here on the Chronicles from the Upper Deck podcast. Stay right here. Roll that slide. Gentlemen, I decided to end 2024 with the biggest guest, and I don't know if you'll like that compliment or not, the biggest guest of my show here. But I've known this man for, gosh, we're going on 10 years next year, that's wild. When I was 16 years old in 2015, I played golf with him, and I guess they loved us being paired together because I knew I wanted to be a journalist since I was a kid. And my next guest is a golf journalist. He lives in Carmel Valley, but he's always from the mean streets of Salinas, California. He's written for Golf Magazine, Sports Illustrated, Fire Pit Collective. You might have heard of his work through his 9 books with the Phil unauthorized biography and Live and Let Die, folks. Live Golf. He has that book out right now. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome now in the guest chair, Alan Shipnuck. Alan, how's it going, sir?
That's going great. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me. If you're saying biggest, as in I need to lose a few pounds around the middle, you're probably not wrong. But it's the holiday season, Derrick. Give me a break, man. A few extra cookies at Thanksgiving, and now it's a personal attack. But
I bet big by like superstar potential here.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Well, Alan, thank you so much. I know you have a busy schedule. I know you're coaching girls basketball for varsity for Carmel, and I'll get into that. But we always start off my show here with some icebreaker questions. So there's a couple here, all golf related, so you don't have to freak out or anything like that. Are you ready for those?
I was born ready. Let's hear
Sounds
it.
good. All right. If you had one last round of golf in your life, who would be in your dream foursome and why?
Oh, that's interesting. It's tempting to say like the young Ben Hogan and, circa 2000 Tiger Woods, great golfers who the best to ever to do it. But really, it would just be three close friends because that's what is most meaningful about golf for me. In my travels, I sometimes get invited to play really nice places with strangers, and I'm not that into it. Like, golf to me is really about the camaraderie and the friendship. So, I don't know if I can pick three at this moment. They might all be offended. Anyone who's left off the list, but it'd be no one your readers or your listeners have ever heard of. It would just be some of my homies, and that would be a delight.
I love that. You're part of the celebrity list, but I know my parents watch this and my sister watches this. So I'll say my dad, my uncle, my sister, three of them got me into golf right away. So that would be on my list. All right.
Yeah.
Next question. What's the lowest round that you have shot?
75 at Sheep Ranch, up at Bandon Dunes, which it it's a playable golf course, but I made so many like 8, 10, 12, 15 footers. It was just an absolute delight. Played the back nine and three under, and I've had a lot of rounds in the high 70s. I just can't quite get it down to the low.
Yeah.
It's always one or two bad swings, but yeah, that was a fun day for sure.
Banded.
What's your lowest round?
My lowest round, 77 at Del Monte with my friend Patrick Abadell.
Delmont. That's
Del
a tricky
Monte.
little golf course. I
It
mean, those
is.
greens are fast, they're small. That's an excellent round of golf.
Yeah,
Kudos.
yeah. Banded Dudes is still on my bucket list, so I got to make it up there.
Yeah, it's heaven on earth. I mean, obviously, I love the courses here on the Monterey Peninsula,
Yeah.
but three of the best are private when you're talking about Cypress and the
Mhm.
two courses at Monterey Peninsula, CC. So
Yeah.
to go to Bandon and you have incredible championship caliber golf courses. You have these two great par three courses now. You have the
Mhm.
putting course, and everything's just right there. And they just lay it out on a buffet table for you. It's amazing.
What is a golf course that's still on your bucket list to play or just to go?
Well, there's a lot because at one point I used to keep track of all the courses in the top 100 list that I'd played, and I had a really substantial number. But in the last 20 years, so many great courses have been built that there's St. Patrick's Links in Ireland, and there's these new ones down in near Tahiti in New Zealand, and there's 7 Mile Beach in Australia, and there's this building boom in South Carolina with Old Barnwell, Tree Farm, and Ohoopee. Like there's Pinehurst number 4. Like none of these existed 10 years ago. So like I was a very well-traveled golfer at one point, and now there's so many courses I haven't been to. But if I had, well, if I had to pick one, it would be some of the more oldies, the classics. There's Oakmont. There was one moment in time where I'd played 16 of the top 17 in the World 100, and Oakmont was the one I was missing, and I still haven't gotten there yet. I've covered a handful of tournaments there, U.S. Opens, U.S.
Right.
Amateurs. It's a citadel of championship golf. So probably Oakmont or Fisher's Island, which is a classic old Seth Rayner on this incredible little oceanfront
Yeah.
um, site and kind of off of this little island off of Long Island, and you have to take a ferry to get there, and it's just kind of like the ultimate pilgrimage. So I'd say Fisher's or Oakmont, but I could add another 20 quite easily.
Yeah. We got a US Open there next year at Oakmont.
Yeah,
And I think my list, I would say obviously St. Andrews, Cyprus, but Liberty National for some reason. I don't know why. I think
interesting.
just with the New York City skyline.
It is one
On
of
the
the
list.
all-time great sites, and it looks so good on TV. So you you
Yeah.
would you'd have fun there for sure.
And if you had free rounds for the rest of your life, I don't know how hard this question you'll get, but four courses here: Augusta National, St. Andrews, Cypress Point, or Pebble Beach.
Wow. Easily could eliminate Augusta National because I don't want to hang out with the people who are members there. I know some of them. I've dealt with them during Masters Week. I have zero interest in hanging out at Augusta National. Um, I mean, St. Andrews would be sweet because that's one of my, even if you took all the golf courses out of St. Andrews, it'd be one of my favorite places. It's just a gorgeous little town, beautiful old university, pubs, and you have the beach and
Yeah.
the ruined castle. Everything about St. Andrews I absolutely adore. And that golf course is really fun. But for me, living here, I mean, I'd have to say Cypress Point, right? Because it's just the ultimate spot. And I've been to a lot of great private clubs, and Cypress is as relaxed as it gets, which I like.
Yeah.
You just pull up, you park your own car on the grass, you carry your bag to the first tee. The caddies give you shit. The guys in the pro shop. It's the only course in America where I go and I get a hug because I'm friends with Casey Raymer, the head pro. We have Pebble Beach roots together working at the golf course there, and
Wow.
it's just a fun, relaxed vibe for a course that's so prestigious. But um, now, if I could play Pebble whenever I wanted, and there would be no one in front of me, and I could play, in 4 hours instead of 5.5 or whatever. This is sacrilege. A lot of people actually think that Pebble Beach is a more thrilling golf course than Cypress Point. There are more holes at Pebble that make your heart pound,
Yeah.
and um, but as constructed right now, I mean, Cypress is a special place to get to play. So that'll be my choice.
And we get the Walker Cup next year. I know that's been highly
It's gonna
anticipated.
be
I tried to
amazing.
volunteer for it and my application got denied. I know tickets are going to be crazy just to try to
Yeah.
get tickets to that. All right, Alan. So we're going to get into the main interview portion. And the first question is always the easiest one. I remember, I don't think I defended you on X because you don't need to be defended because you're awesome. But I remember some guy got into it was about a golf tournament. He's like, "Oh, what do you know about living in Salinas or something like that?" And I think you said, I grew up in the mean streets of Salinas. And I just started laughing. How would you describe your upbringing in Salinas?
Interesting question. Salinas is a great place to grow up because for me, it instilled this desire to get out, you know, kind of small town, a little conservative in its thinking. This is not news. I mean, John Steinbeck made all that plain in,
Yeah.
East of Eden. But, um, and so it instilled this desire to see the wider world because I knew there was more to life than just what Salinas had to offer. But at the same time, a very pleasant place to grow up. I mean, I'm going to date myself here. This is obviously before cell phones and stuff. I would just leave a note on the cutting board in the kitchen for my mom where I was going, and my friends and I would ride our bikes all over town. We'd play football in the park. We play basketball. We'd go to, it used to be called Alpha Beta. I don't even know what grocery chain it is anymore, but right off Alisal, we'd play. They had the video games we'd pump the quarters into. And um, there was just tons of kids always around at every schoolyard, every park, and so it was an outdoor upbringing, and a lot of my Salinas friends I'm still really really close to because you had to be. If you grow up in a more exciting place, then there's a lot of distractions. In Salinas, you kind of had to create your own fun,
Yeah.
and that was we sort of bonded as these units, and had a really great education at Washington Junior High, as we used to call it. The English teacher was also the journalism, or she ran the school paper. Her name was Kitty Drew, and she's no longer with us, but she was a great influence on my life because she was the first person who told me that I had a talent for writing, and she's the one who encouraged me to run the student newspaper, and that gave me a taste of journalism and storytelling, and so she had a profound effect on me, and had a lot of great English teachers at Salinas High. Played for Joe Chappell, the legendary basketball coach, and that had a big impact on my life. And so I have very fond memories of my childhood, even as I don't live in Salinas anymore. But it's always I'm sitting next to my desk. I have the photo of my 1991 basketball team, Monterey Bay League champions, and you know, I, if I cut my finger, iceberg lettuce comes out. I got Salinas pumping through my veins. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And you speaking of your parents, I know your mom was a supervisor for Monterey County, and your dad was a professor at Hartnell College. How did they instill like hard work in you and just making sure that you went after your dreams?
yeah. It's interesting. like my dad, he was valedictorian of his high school class. He went to the London School of Economics. He could have had, I'm sure, a big career in academia, a brilliant guy, but he was an incredible outdoorsman, still is at 84. And we just went skiing last winter and he rides his bike around and he's incredible. And but he loved to have his summers off to ride his bikes and to backpack in the Sierra. He loved the long winter breaks to ski. And so uh, he was sort of before it was trendy, he was all about the work-life balance, and enjoying life and enjoying nature. And um, my mom was a different personality. She grew up in Brooklyn. She kind of had that East Coast edge. She was also incredibly brilliant. She was a champion debater at Brandeis. She went to law school, and then she got into politics. And she was more the hard charger. And they kind of both. My mom pushed me a little more overtly. My dad, it was more like because he'd have his professor friends over, and they would talk about politics and great books and philosophy. And I was always amazed that the human brain could store so much, and not just my dad, but his friends too. And they could bounce from topic to topic, and they never were at a loss for words, and that astonished me. And so that made me want to read all the books and visit all the places and do all the things. And so they were great role models, great parents, and yeah, and they kind of launched me into this life of ideas and thinking and reading, and that obviously had an effect on my writing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's awesome. Your dad's still skiing, by the way, at 84.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, he's a beautiful skier. He can still carve up a mountain. It's really cool.
And how did you get involved in journalism? And I know you mentioned one of your role models at Washington Middle School, but who were some of your early influences to get you involved in this crazy world we call our profession?
Yeah. Well, I give a lot of credit to like Jim Murray. His columns used to be syndicated in the Californian and I think the Herald too. Jim Murray, he's a little ahead of the time of some of your listeners, but he's probably the greatest newspaper columnist of all time. And maybe not even in sports, across any genre. Just an absolutely brilliant writer with an incredible ability to tell a story in 800 or 1,000 words. The economy of language, also uproariously funny, um, and universally beloved and respected. And so that was the first writing I remember reading that really I'd started looking for his column. They'd have his little picture and like he was my first, god of sports writing. And that was probably when I was 10, 11, 12, because the news, my both my parents always had newspapers laying around, not just the Herald and the Chronicle. My mom had the San Jose Mercury News, so I'd read. They had a guy named Mike Purdy, and he was a really good columnist too, and I enjoyed his stuff. And there was Phil Taylor was there. Phil and I became colleagues at Sports Illustrated later on, and I made him. It was actually funny. I was like, Phil, when I was like in junior high, I used to wake up and eat Cocoa Puffs and read your stories. And he's like, dude, you make me feel like I'm 100 years old. Um, and so I started to read the bylines, and the writers that moved me or inspired me. And then my dad had a girlfriend and like my parents divorced when I was 8. So I was like 10, 11, 12. Her name's Ann Hill. She's still a great mentor in my life. And she had a Sports Illustrated subscription. And so I started reading SI. And at first I would just like cut the photos out. Then I started to really read the stories and pay attention to like think about them after I'd finished. I'm like, why was that so good? Like, how did they do that? It was like magic, it's just this black and white. Uh, it's just ink on a paper, but how can it like stir you so much? And so that was so yeah, I had many sports writing idols even at an early age. And I did the high school yearbook. And then when I was at Salinas High, and then when I was 16, there was a little ad in the Californian that said, sports writer wanted. And I called up as George Watkins, was the long time, you know, um, dean of local sports writing. And everyone had an opinion about George Watkins because he would write about your high school and either you'd love it or hate it, depending on what he wrote. And, coaches were always barking at him and parents were giving him the stink eye. And I was like, wow, this dude's like, he has a higher profile in town than the mayor. Everyone knew George Watkins. And and I love George. I've seen him around many times in recently, even at the Salinas Valley Sports Hall of Fame festivities and whatnot. George is great, and we always have a laugh about the old days. So I called the number and I said, I'm 16, but I think I can be a sports writer. And because I'd done the junior high newspaper and the high school yearbook, and because I've read all these great sports writers, so my uncle Les, he would clip out. He was in Berkeley. He would send me like long pieces out of the New Yorker, often by a guy named Roger Angel. He's on the Mount Rushmore of baseball writers.
Yeah.
And my mom, when she was traveling, she would bring me newspapers from the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, whatever. So I had so much good sports writing in my brain, even at 16, and I felt like I could do it. And I was just cocky enough to believe that. So they gave me some chances. And I mean, I'll never forget the first story I ever did for the Californian. I had my 1968 VW Bug, baby blue, like the color of your hoodie. And I drove back after the game, went to the little office there on Alisal, went up. It was a literal typewriter. The game had gone long, and I did a bunch of interviews, probably way more than I needed to. And
Yeah.
I was probably BSing with my friends, whatever, because it was a Sling High game, and which is already a conflict of interest. I'm writing about my friends essentially, but um, and there was hardly anyone left except for the editors, and so I'm typing out my story. I've the most deadline pressure I've ever felt in my whole life,
Yeah.
and the editor was this guy named Jim Albanese who had these big, thick glasses, just right out of central casting for a sports editor at a small newspaper, just dressed like a slob, hair is all greasy, and kind of crusty bugger. But I mean, I loved him, but I was scared of him. And so he's reading my story. I'm just sitting there. I don't know what to do. And he kind of gets halfway through and he like peers over his glasses. He's like, "This is pretty good, kid." I was like, one of the happiest moments of my life. And so they just kept giving me assignments, and some of them got bigger, and there were more features. And I got not. I just started doing baseball in the spring and other whatever was happening, and so then I went to UCLA, and they had the Daily Bruin was the reason I went to UCLA. It was an absolutely incredible student paper, and they had a rule that freshmen you had to take all these introductory classes. You couldn't really write for the paper till you were a sophomore.
Right.
But I had all these clips from the Californian, and I went to the sports area. I was like, "Bro, I know how to do this." He's like, "Yeah, you do." So I started writing for the Daily Bruin earlier than I would have, and so it just kind of just kept. It was like just putting one brick after another. Pretty soon you have this nice tall wall. Like that was just kind of my early journalism career.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Similar story like to mine, where my friends still look at me for reading a newspaper, even though I grew up reading it since I was 8. And I just love the feeling of paper in my hand. I don't know. I can't look at
Yeah,
my phone all day.
it's satisfying.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What are some of your earliest memories of going to Pebble Beach?
It would have been when my mom was a supervisor, they would always throw these lavish brunches during the tournament week and sort of VIPs, whatever, and we'd get invited because they would have all the local politicians up there. And it was very decadent. And I'll never forget there was like this drink. I think that for me they gave it was like they made hot cocoa, but it might have probably was something else for the adults. And it had like this little and this is like Louis the 14th stuff. It had this little like actual gold like paper thin little top that you could drink. Probably going to get cancer from it, but it was like, oh, we're like drinking actual gold. This is insane. I don't know if it was or not, but that's what they told me. And I was
Yeah.
gullible. I was like, whatever, 10 years old. And I was like, this is unbelievable. And, but yeah, those brunches were so fun. And then we'd walk around the course and, that would have been late 80s, early 90s. It was a much more freewheeling event. And the stars were bigger. You had Clint Eastwood, you had Jack Lemmon,
Yeah.
um, you had Charles Schulz, the guy who did Peanuts, who was
Yeah.
so beloved. And it just felt like a bigger deal. The tournament is struggle to get like really A-list celebrities, but they and maybe yeah, we've all grown more weary. Celebrities were more rare back then. They weren't in your face 24/7. So when
Hmm.
it was a big deal to see them there. And and yeah, it was a little more wild and woolly. And of course, I that's how I'd prefer it to be, but not as corporate as it is now. But yeah, I always loved going to Pebble.
I know every time you like either cover the program, you just simply say the Crosby clam bake, and I'm like, yeah, that's how I refer
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I know. People get mad at me because I use the real names of terms. Like I call it the LA Open. I don't
Yeah,
even know who the sponsor is. It's like it's the Genesis. Why do you have allegiance to a car company that when their contract runs out, it's going to be a new car company? Who
right,
cares? Like it's the LA Open, it's the
right.
Bob Hope Classic, it's the Dinah Shore. It's like it's the San Diego Invitational. Like
Yeah.
it's bizarre that people get mad at me because I don't use these meaningless corporate names.
And I know you talked about your championship season in 1991 at Salinas High for the boys basketball team. What were some of your favorite memories playing basketball? Because I know you played basketball and golf at Salinas High.
Well, there's so many. A lot of them are inappropriate for a family audience because my best friends were on that team and we
Yeah.
just goofed off so much. And even though we worked hard and we competed hard and we liked to beat each other in practice, there were so many laughs. Like my friend Chad Gig, he went on to play football at St. Mary's. We both played, we were both fours, power forwards. And so we would shoot free throws together. You just sort of get paired off with your teammate. And you have to shoot, I think 20, it was like 25 free throws straight. And um, the unimaginable filth that would come out of Chad's mouth when I was trying to shoot free throws and vice versa. Nothing was off limits. I mean, the things we said were so out of pocket and trying not to laugh and trying to concentrate on the free throws. You'd get into a game in a pressure situation. It was easy because like no one was talking about, yeah, I can't even say it, but it was just and of course, everyone in the gym kind of they knew what was happening, so they were laughing. Like Coach Chappell was pretending to be mad, but I think he enjoyed it. It was like there was so many things like that. And on the court we had well, so this was great. This was unbelievable. We the summer before my senior year, I went on this trip to New Zealand with Kevin Price,
Yeah.
who's still my best friend. He was a
Yeah.
shooting guard on that team. Um, and it was kind of this quasi all-star team coached by Jim Rear of Alisal. He had a bunch of his players and others. And we had a great time. We barnstormed across New Zealand. We won. We didn't lose a game. And that trip that's a whole other podcast, honestly. But it was one of the highlights of my life to this day.
Nice.
And then we were playing Alisal early the next season, and we said whichever team lost had to like buy pizza for the other team. And so it was an epic game. We were down in their gym. We were down like 10 or 12 points in the fourth quarter, and we stormed back to win. And I had a huge offensive putback and one plus the free throw that might have tied it or might have put us ahead. It was like down at the end of the game. Kevin played great. And it was so satisfying because those guys were so cocky. They had a good team. And then Jim Rear, just everlasting credit, rocked up to like our post game spot with a bunch of pizzas and some of his players too, and it was cool. I mean, credit to them. That was epic, and that was when we knew we were going to be a good team because I think my junior year we struggled, and um, that was early in the season, third or fourth game, and that like gave us the belief, and we carried that the whole season.
Nice. And I'm sure my parents just switched it off because you said they're Alisal High School alumni, so they're proud crowd of Trojans there. So
Well, I
I
will
can
say on the girls basketball side, it's all I care about now.
yeah,
Alisal is that program is phenomenal.
yeah,
They have
absolutely.
they have a factory there, and we played them in a summer tournament. Just and it's kind of a rebuilding year a little bit for Carmel, and this is my first year as the head coach. They ran us off the floor, but afterwards I went to the coach, the players. I was like, it was a pleasure to watch you guys play basketball, and I meant it. Like they play so hard. They're relentless. They are always attacking on offense and defense. I have mad respect for Alisal girls basketball.
Nice, nice. And I know you talked about your time at the Daily Bruin. Were you able to cover Coach Wooden's like later years during your time there, or
He was
did he go
still
back?
around.
Okay,
He was still sitting in the crowd. He'd come in and he'd get a standing O every time, and he would just sit there and watch the game. With he was probably in his, I'd have to look up his birthday, late 80s. A little frail physically, but you could
right.
still see in his eyes they were quite alive. I never really talked to him. I never wanted to bug him.
Yeah,
Everyone just gave him his space, but it was neat. It's like, um, I'm trying to think what the right parallel is. He's the greatest to ever do it, and such a kind, beloved human. It
Yeah.
was, yeah. I regret not ever trying to arrange an interview, through the Daily Bruin, because I'm sure he would have enjoyed talking about basketball, and I've thought about that in the years since. That was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, especially all the stories he has from the different decades of
Oh man, yeah.
coaching. Yeah. And what made you want to cover golf, as basically your bread and butter of your entire career, Alan?
It was just circumstance. When you say I played golf for Salinas High, that's funny because I played one match. The Spanish teacher Frank Costas was the golf coach, and I'd started working at Pebble Beach, and he knew that, but um, I was not that great at golf, and I don't know what happened. A bunch of other people were sick, the guys on the team, or something happened. He was just desperate, and he pulled me out of class. He's like, "Hey kid, do you have your golf clubs in your trunk?" I said, "Yeah, they're always in my trunk," because I would hit balls sometimes at lunch during my shifts at Pebble. He's like, "You want to play today?" I was like, "Okay." And so we went up to Coyote Creek. I guess we were probably playing Morgan Hill, and I don't remember what I shot. It wasn't great. I mean, it was probably like 46 or something for 9 holes, but it might have counted. I think they needed me, and that was a whole different level of golf when you got to putt everything out, and there's no gimmies, there's no mulligans. Like that kind of changed my attitude. Like, wow, there's a serious way to play this game, and so it was a cool experience. But that was sum total of my golfing life at Salinas High. But um, yeah, it just worked out. When I was working on the first tee at Pebble Beach, I met the managing editor of Sports Illustrated, and that led to a 2-year correspondence, which led to my internship. And so he thought I was a golf guy, which I followed it a little bit because of the tournaments at Pebble, but
Yeah.
I was much more like probably most people, football, basketball, baseball. But that was in 1994, and the magazine was launching something called Golf Plus, which was the supplemental coverage for subscribers about the sport. And that was also the sort of the dawn of the Big Bertha era, and the equipment industry was starting to go crazy, and they
Yeah.
were printing money, and it was like this arms race between Callaway and TaylorMade and Titleist, and so they started pouring advertising money into Golf Plus, and therefore they needed editorial, and I was just in the right place at the right time, and I got some chances to write, and because I'd done the junior high newspaper and the high school yearbook and the Salinas Californian and the Daily Brew, and I was only 20, 21, but in my mind I could write for Sports Illustrated. Like I felt like I had paid my dues. If for a decade I'd been grinding, which is kind of funny, but and I'd read every book, I'd read every magazine article, I'd read every newspaper column. Like I had a PhD in sports writing in my brain at that point.
Yeah.
And so I got some chances, and they were pretty good, and they just kept giving me more. And so and then once you're on a beat for a while, you start to develop the contacts,
Mhm.
you start to make relationships with the players and the agents and the caddies and
Mhm.
the wives, and you start developing an expertise. And so golf was just where I was. And then of course when I did my internship, I went back to UCLA. I kept writing. I graduated in 96 and was hired immediately by SI. And that was the year Tiger Woods turned pro. So then golf all of a sudden went crazy again. I was just
Yeah.
in the right place at the right time in a few different ways. And yeah, the most dominant, most charismatic athlete in the world playing golf. And so um hat tip to Michael Jordan. He was still around at that point, but Tiger was a phenomenon. And so there was a point SI had a guy named Jack McCallum. He's a Hall of Fame basketball writer. And when he was retiring in probably the mid 2000s, if I had pushed really hard, I think I could have become the NBA writer, which is probably would have been my dream because my background in basketball and just my love for the NBA. And
Yeah.
um, but it was daunting because that meant starting over, not knowing anyone,
Mhm.
and I had I had control over my life as the golf writer. Like I'd been doing it for 10 years at the magazine. I had a great symbiotic relationship with the editor. Um, golf was not a staple of the magazine every week. And
Right.
so you could pick and choose. And at that point, it depends on the year, but I started having kids in '03. So I had probably two, maybe three little kids, and I just felt like it's better to stick where I was known, where I had an audience. I'd already published my first book in golf, and that was a success. And in fact, I probably already published two by then. And so I kind of stayed where I'd already carved out my domain. And every now and then I'm wistful about it because it would have been a fun ride doing the NBA.
Yeah.
But um, no regrets. I mean, golf has been great to me.
And I know you don't travel with the tour week to week, and I know you go to like the majors and stuff. What are some of your favorite golf events you like to cover and why? Besides the Live Golf series, but
Yeah. Well, the live events are interesting and fun in their own way. They have an energy for sure. It's different from the PGA Tour.
yeah,
But I mean, the top of the list would have to be the British Open. I love the style of golf, just the foreignness of it, the elements, the great old courses, the little towns. Everything about it is so much fun. Um, I love the US Open too, for that matter, because it's just this spectacle and
hmm
the course is so brutal and um, it really is a war of attrition and the crowds are humongous and all of it. Um, I like covering Torrey Pines. Like to me, that's kind of the start of the season down in
right,
San Diego.
yeah,
The Hawaii events is a mixed bag who actually turns up, at least in the old days. And then they go to the Hope, but that's always kind of San
yeah,
Diego is where a lot of the best players would start their years, where Tiger would start his year. It's a pretty big time golf course, and I like being down there. Um, I mean, I always love covering New Orleans just because it's New Orleans and it's fun, and the tournament used to be on the same week as the Jazz Fest, which is probably one of the biggest things that happens in New Orleans every year, and it was just
yeah,
the town was on fire, and it was so much fun. Um, I like, the playoff events when they're around New York City. You mentioned Liberty National. Like
yeah,
anytime you can be in New York City and pick up on that energy. I've always, and the thing that's been cool about my job, it's taken me to so many places I never would have gone before.
hmm
Like I know the state of Wisconsin really well because of all the big tournaments there.
yeah,
Would I have ever gone there as a tourist? Probably not. The St. Louis, the Milwaukee's, the some of those Midwest cities, they have a lot of charm, and
yeah,
you just wouldn't get there otherwise. Same with the Southeast. I've been all over the South, and because of golf, and you might, if you're in California, you might go to Savannah or you might go to Charleston. I mean, there's some places that are well known, but I mean, I've been in these little towns. I've been in all over the Eastern Seaboard, so I'm down for any tournament really. I mean, it's always an adventure in some way.
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure your frequent flyer miles have increased.
Well, I burn them as quick as I accrue them with four kids and everything else.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And what made you want to? I know you started the Fire Pit Collective a couple years ago. How rewarding was it to kind of take that risk because you were at Sports Illustrated Golf Magazine, and then you're into this unknown project that you started?
yeah, I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm kind of a dinosaur. I mean, when I started SI in '94, there was no internet, there were no cell phones. Um, print was king. Obviously, it goes out saying things have changed a lot,
Mhm.
um, and I caught the tail end of the glory years of print. But the legacy media titles, the Sports Illustrated, the golf magazines, they were so slow to adapt to this changing reality, and they're always two steps behind. And um, so, to make an exceptionally long story short, decided it was time to get out of the old staunch publications and try it a different way. And so, Matt Janella, one of my great friends and former colleague at Sports Illustrated, and then he was at Golf Channel, he was at Golf Digest. We decided to launch this platform ourselves, and it was an incredible education, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. It's hard to run a small business, which is what it
Yeah.
was. It's hard to run a startup.
hmm
It's especially hard to do that in the media space, especially right now, and there's already so much contraction and so many different trends like this YouTube, the rise of YouTube golf has been like incredible, but that a lot of advertisers now want to jump on that train with like
Yeah.
these 20 somethings, and it's very different than the kind of storytelling that we wanted to do. And I'm really proud of all the content we did at the fire pit, but it was hard to run the business. And at some point, Matt and I were putting all of our energy into the business, managing other people, sales calls, making decks,
Right.
trying to drum up investors. It's like the whole reason we did this was as a platform for our work. And we don't have time to do our work because we're just trying to run the business. Like we're kind of
Exactly.
chasing our tail. So,
Yeah.
earlier this year, like kind of late spring, we decided to shut it down. And I was a little bummed, but I was also relieved because it was hard.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It was a lot. And so now I'm just kind of focused on my writing. I'm working on a biography of Rory McIlroy, who I think is the most interesting golfer of sort of the post-Tiger era. And working with some Hollywood people, we're trying to turn Live and Let Die into a scripted TV show. So that's been happening. The Mickelson book got optioned by Amazon Studios, and there's a documentary film that's in the works. I've got a role in that.
Wow.
And so I'm my life has been simplified. Like I used to wake up every day. I had like 6 phone calls I had to make. I had all these Zooms. I had all this. I was editing other people's stuff, and now I'm just kind of back to being a free agent. Not a free agent, but I'm a one man band. Is really what I am. I can just focus on my own thing. So I miss the camaraderie of the fire pit and that sense that we were building something. But it's made my life a lot less stressful.
Wow. Well, I'll make sure to mark those down for next holiday shopping for the Rory book because I know it's coming
I
out in a
appreciate
couple of
that.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you wrote 9 books, which is crazy. I know a lot of people say I need to write my own book, and that's hopefully decades down the line. But I've always wanted to ask you this: describe your thought process on what makes you want to write a book versus like a long form article like you did back in the old days.
Yeah, I had such veneration for books as just growing up as a reader, and the act of writing a book seemed very daunting, like it does for everyone. But as I got into writing more long form pieces, is like I started to see it like every chapter of a book is really like just a good magazine story in its own way. And of course, you're carrying themes and storylines from chapter to chapter, but it's, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 words. I was already writing stories of that length, no problem. And so I just felt like I could do it. I've always just had this belief that I can do these things. I mean, there's been a lot of work that's gone into that and trial and error, but I was not intimidated by it. And I've had, great mentors. That's been a big part of it. The Michael Bambergers, Rick Riley, John Garrity, Jaime Diaz, all these great names from the golf beat from the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And, Michael Bamberger, especially, he encouraged me. We'd talk things through. I just sat down and started typing, and it was like it felt natural. And so, and the first one was probably it's still in print all these years later. It's kind of a cult classic, and got a great reception. And so I was like, okay, I think I can do this. So I just kept doing it, and it's fun. Books are forever.
Yeah.
Some people still have some old SIs under their bed, and you can pull out those
Right.
stories. Yeah, I love that. But even a lot of stuff that I've done, that was online only has disappeared because um, the SI Vault, as they call it, they have not digitized every story, and it's really hard to search anything there. I don't know if you ever go to SI Vault. It's a total mess. It's
Yeah.
hard to find stories. And then Golf Magazine, golf.com, they every time they kind of redesign their website, which is often they don't transfer everything. And so a lot of my stuff is just gone. Like I might have a PDF or something, but no one else can find it. And so but that's not really the issue with books, thank God. So
Yeah.
there's a permanence there that's attractive. And um, it's how I feed my family. It's
Great.
still for me a nice way to make a living. And most of all, I just love the freedom of it because I can do whatever the hell I want. I mean, I have an editor in the end, but he hardly touches my stuff. He trusts me. He likes my writing. And
Yeah.
so it's like there's no one to answer to. There's there's no review process for my thinking or how I want to structure it or who I'm going to focus on or what the themes are. Like it's all me, and I love that. And you can just get lost in the act of writing it, just like as readers, you can get lost in the book itself. And so it's just a fun process, even though it can be, it's a challenge, but
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy it.
And what's the toughest part about writing a book? Is it just trying to, you know, bring out the knowledge in your head to the page, or is it just kind of the schedule or the timeline of trying to achieve
Yeah.
publishing?
No, the writing is the easy part for me. The hard part is organizing my life every day so I can find that time to write, because it's very easy to get distracted by what's happening in your personal life, your kids,
Yeah.
household chores. Every writer loves to procrastinate. And when you don't have a daily or a weekly deadline,
Yeah.
you can really procrastinate. So I've always been very disciplined. The writing Phil and Live and Let Die back to back while trying to build the fire pit. My mom died in the middle of all that. It was like a crazy 3 years, and it took something out of me. It took a piece of my soul, and I'm having a little harder time. Like, I mean, Live and Let Die, I worked on 7 days a week for months, off until midnight. Like, I think I broke something inside of myself. I'm having trouble just like grinding on this Rory book, even though I'm enjoying it. So I've taken my foot off the gas pedal just a little bit, which is good for my mind and body and soul, but I'm not producing the pages fast enough. So I gotta get it back. I'm hoping it's just only a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise I might starve to death. But um, it's yeah, the challenge is just buckling down and writing every day. I mean,
Yeah.
there's an old there's an old novelist. I can't remember who it was at this point. Like, what is the secret to writing? And his answer was ass in chair. Like, that's it. You just gotta sit there and do the work.
Yeah.
So um that's the answer.
Well, I think your final chapter of the Rory book will be if he finally completes the career Grand Slam ending.
Yeah, well, that'd be amazing. That'd be
Yeah,
incredible.
good happy ending there.
Mhm.
Um, this I know one of the other books that you co-wrote was called Like a River to the Sea with Jack Grancolas, and that was really emotional just hearing that story. For the viewers and the listeners, can you describe what that book's about?
Yeah, Jack is someone who I just met through golf. He was actually helping out Randy Haig, who's a great NCGA
Yeah,
amateur. He's won a bunch of tournaments
yeah,
at all levels of amateur golf. And he had the idea for a company, and Jack had a background in marketing, and they were buddies. And so Jack got my number. He invited me to coffee, and we talked about this company for like 20 minutes, and it was mildly interesting. But I was like, "So what's your background, Jack?" And then we sat there for like 3 hours, and he told me his whole story. And you know, he his college sweetheart, her name was Lauren. Um, they tried for 10 years to get pregnant. They finally did. She was flying back. She went back east to tell her family the happy news, and um, she was flying home, and she was on United 93, and that was a plane that was hijacked on 9/11. It was delayed at the gate for about 45 minutes, so the passengers in real time kind of knew it was happening. The other planes had already hit the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, so there was that uprising to try and take the plane back from the hijackers. And in the ensuing struggle, it crashed into that field in Pennsylvania. And that plane was heading back to Washington D.C. to take out the Capitol building. I mean, they saved untold number of lives, and sort of real iconography of democracy. And they were really the first heroes in the war on terror. And so Jack lost Lauren that day, and everyone on the plane, no one survived. And so it's his story about their courtship and this great love affair, and the events of that day, and what followed. And then how do you put your life back together after that kind of a tragedy? And Jack lives in Pebble Beach. We're great friends, and we play golf and we'll have dinner. And he's still a big part of my life. And it's a really powerful book about kind of perseverance, about perspective, about love. And that was an emotional one to work on. I mean, Jack calls me his therapist. We just sat and talked for literally years,
mhm,
in kind of the making of that book. And so that was a labor of love. And if I can get this thing made for the Live TV show, the next thing I want to do is try and write a screenplay based on Jack's life and based on that book, because
well, yeah,
it's incredibly powerful and cinematic. And it should be a movie. So I'm not quite at the point in my life where I can write things on spec that take that much time. I got to get the Rory book done. I got to get the TV show done, but I'm 100% going to write a screenplay based on that book at some point, and I think it'll wind up on big screens because it's so incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't read it, go get that because that's you'll need a lot of Kleenex to
Yeah, it's
wipe the
emotional.
tears. Just a couple more, Alan. This one's kind of not a really a political question, but obviously with President-elect Trump returning to the Oval Office next month, and we all know how big of a golfer the president-elect is. How do you think he will impact talks of a deal between the PGA Tour and the Saudi Public Investment Fund?
That's a great question. I mean, if you read Live and Let Die, Trump is a big character in that book um, for a lot of reasons. He has a long history with the Saudis, and um, after Jamal Khashoggi was murdered and the entire Western world was isolating and marginalizing the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, Trump rode to his rescue and kept him in power. And as a thank you, now Trump gets millions of dollars to host these live golf events. His son-in-law Jared Kushner got $1 billion in investment from the Saudis for his money management firm. They're inextricably tied together, and so um, and we all know, as you say, Trump loves golf. After the election, he played golf with Jay Monahan of the PGA Tour. He played golf with His Excellency Yasir Al Rumayyan, who is the patriarch of live golf. And so, um, maybe Trump can do it. Like it's been a year and a half now of uh, now it's not even chess. It's more like stagecraft, both
Yeah,
sides trying to trick the other and
right.
try and exert their will. Um, so I I think, Trump would love to be the guy who saved professional golf, just on a personal level.
Yeah,
But also, I mean, don't forget he's had tournaments taken away by the PGA of America, the
yeah,
PGA Tour,
yeah,
the R&A. He's been completely ostracized by professional golf. Um, the only organization that will still do any business with Trump is Live Golf. I think Trump is thinking, if I can bring peace to the golf world, maybe I can get a PGA Tour event back at Doral, and maybe I can get a British Open at Turnberry, and it's not that altruistic.
yeah.
He's a very transactional personality, as we all
Yeah.
know. So it would certainly benefit him if he can broker this truce and kind of get back in the good graces of the golf decision makers.
Yeah, I do miss seeing Turberry on the Open Rota.
Yeah, me too. It's
Too. It's
phenomenal.
just some of the Open championships they've hosted there. There's been some talk, and I've seen a couple players been outspoken about this. Do you believe players should be played to pay in either the Ryder Cup or any team event, whether that's Olympics or President's Cup, Solheim Cup?
Yeah. Well, they do get paid at the Olympics. If you win the gold medal, you get like $50,000 from the USOC or whatever that number is. It's for all athletes in all sports. So Scotty Scheffler got his $50,000 after having made 62 million on the PGA Tour. I don't think it meant that much to him, but the gold medal certainly did, as we all
Yeah,
saw.
yeah,
Um, I go back and forth on this. This was part of what made the Ryder Cup so pure, as they were doing it for free, and that was really cool. It was a great marketing bit, and it's the passion that the players exhibited. There was just a purity to the whole thing. On the other hand, the PGA of America and the European Tour, I mean, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars off the Ryder Cup, TV rights, merchandise, corporate entertaining. Tickets are $1,000 to go to Bethpage.
yeah,
Um, and for the players not to get any of it feels kind of weird. They're the whole show. You can't have the Ryder Cup without the players. So when the Ryder Cup was a smaller thing, like, in the 80s and 90s, I think it was like, okay, this is cool. They're playing for free. Now that it's like the Super Bowl of golf, I mean, no one expects the Chiefs to not get paid to play in the Super Bowl. It's just not how it works. And um, so I think the time has come. The players deserve to be compensated. It'd be cool. They could just give them $1 million each, but it has to go to charity. I think that would be meaningful. And the players can take the tax deduction. It has some value to them. They can help out all the things they're passionate about. And it'd be an acknowledgement by the Ryder Cup that yes, these guys are the show and we're generating a ton of money off their toil and we owe them something. But if it all goes to charity, I think it still is cool that they are essentially playing for free. But
Yeah.
if they wind up just giving them straight cash, it doesn't really bother me. It's not going to diminish how much either team wants to win. So um, it's just like college sports. Like, it was kind of gross for the head coach to make $10 million and the star players didn't make anything.
Yeah.
It just the time has come to acknowledge reality,
Yeah.
and um, I think that's where we are.
How would you describe Scotty Scheffler and Nelly Cordes' seasons? I mean, Scotty, I think, could be a 30 for 30 documentary of what happened in Louisville, then obviously the Olympics and the players and winning the players and PGA, the Masters too.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of the for Scotty, it's one of the greatest seasons in golf history, without a doubt. I mean, um, I guess you'd like him to have won more than one of the traditional major championships, but he did get the gold medal, which you can argue is a bigger deal. You only get to play for it once every 4 years.
Right.
And the way he did it to shoot 62 on the final round and blow off the golf course a bunch of world-class players, including Rory, John Rahm, like
Yeah.
that was pretty epic stuff. So, I mean, and there's a lot of advanced metrics
Hmm.
you can look at. I mean, it's without a doubt one of the 10 best seasons in the history of the sport. Nellie's was weird. Like she was red hot start of the year into the spring. Um, and then she swooned pretty badly in the summer,
Yeah.
and then blew a big lead at the Olympics. She missed the shot, what, 80, missed the cut at was the British Open. Like some weird stuff happened in there. Like she just I think kind of got overwhelmed by the responsibilities of being the face of an entire sport.
Hmm.
But then she finished strong, and I would say hers was a great year, but not a historic year. And even though she won, well, it was historic. She won with five in a row,
Yeah.
but it it's not one of the all-time great seasons in LPGA history. But it was very meaningful for the sport because everyone loves Nelly Korda. She's an absolute, sweetheart. She's very telegenic, and she's going to take the LPGA to totally new heights. So it was a very important year in the macro sense, but honestly, it was a little disappointing after the start she had. She kind of let it get away a little bit.
Yeah, and I know recently the LPGA Tour commissioner is stepping down. I think later this month or next month. How do you think the LPGA Tour can continue to ascend with like Nelly Korda and Lydia Ko leading the way, and Roger too?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the purses; they've gone way up in the last few years. The hours on TV. I mean, I think they're on the right track. They don't have to reinvent themselves. It's just keep pushing for better TV windows, keep getting their stars and into more mainstream platforms. And Nelly does a good job of that. She went to the Met Gala looking like a movie star,
Yeah.
and she's fun on social media. Lydia's, now that she's gotten married, she was always very private and she's out there having fun and kind of
Hmm.
living life a little more publicly. And
Yeah.
they're both such appealing people. I think the more they're out there, the obviously it helps the sport. I don't know. I think it can be a mistake. And the powers that be on the PGA Tour, they kind of overreached with Tiger. Like
Right.
golf's a boutique sport. It's always been a boutique sport. And you kind of have to accept that.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. You have to be what you are, but they just need to keep maximizing what they're doing.
Will you be watching any TGL events next month?
Yeah. Mm. I mean, morbid curiosity. I'll watch the first one, maybe the second one. I'm trying to be open-minded. Like
Yeah.
maybe it'll be cool. Now that they've sort of built this arena and they're giving tours of it, like it looks like a neat space. I don't know. The problem is there's only a handful of guys who have any personality. So the idea they're gonna be mic'd up, it's gonna be super intimate. I mean, Patrick Cantlay's boring no matter what.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna change
Pretty
that.
vanilla. Yeah.
There's a bunch of guys like that, and
Yeah.
um, what makes golf to me so spectacular is the scale of it. When you stand on the tee box and you watch this guy drive it 360 yards to the horizon, and the next one, hits it over a palm tree at a flag and stops at 4 feet away. When you're out there watching it, it's breathtaking. When you compress that onto, basically two dimensions, I think you lose some of the awe. And but I don't know. You're more the demographic than I am.
Yeah.
Uh, are you gonna watch?
I'll watch like the first couple events, and then I think you have the college football playoff, and then I'm a big hockey fan, so I'll be watching the Sharks and the Warriors. So it's like, will I watch on a Tuesday night if I'm bored? Sure, but will anybody remember who won the TGL championship? Will that get him into the World Golf Hall of Fame? Probably not.
No, no, hell no. Yeah, it's. I think it'll be. That's a good way of putting it. It's just going to
Yeah,
be something to do when you're bored,
exactly.
and it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
I, it'll be. It's just one more thing you can bet on. I'm not really a gambler, so I don't care. But I'm with all the stats they're going to have and all the
yeah,
different metrics. In a controlled environment where wind's not a factor and rain and spiked up greens, and you're taking a lot of the variables away. So I'm sure there's a lot of sickos will enjoy betting on it, and that's
yeah,
fine. But yeah, it's like eating like potato chips, They're pleasant. They don't really fill you up. It's not a meal. It's just
yeah.
something to get you from the afternoon to your actual dinner. Like it's
Right,
whatever.
right.
I mean, although I think probably eating a bag of chips will be more enjoyable than watching the TGL. So
What is the biggest problem facing up and coming journalists today? Is it more just on social media or just trying to create new opportunities for themselves?
yeah, the landscape is changing so fast. I mean, everyone's what is AI going to do to a lot of newspaper jobs? Or well, those are gone already. Like more like the breaking news stories um, that humans are writing now. I think are going to get written by machines, just aggregating everything that's out there really quick. Um, yeah, it's just traditional storytelling is getting more and more rare, and the outlets that can support it and that value it. It's much more short, snappy, casual, sort of almost like user generated content than real journalism.
Yeah,
And you know, I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man. I prefer the old way, but things change and you have to adapt. And I'd never done a podcast until 7 years ago or whatever, and now they're a dominant part of the media. So you just have to roll with it. It's hard to give advice because what if you're a freshman in college? How is the media going to be different in 5 years? I mean,
right.
probably substantially.
Hmm.
It's hard to give advice,
Yeah,
but I think storytelling skills, good writing will always be important in any medium. And so I think instead of future casting, it's just more about sharpening your own skills, like learning how to do interviews, learning how to control a narrative, understanding the importance of like rigorous fact checking and sourcing. Because one thing the people have asked me, "Are you worried that AI will make you obsolete?" If I was a fiction writer, I might be a little worried. Although I have done one novel, but because I'm sure the computers, if you fed them nothing but the greatest writing ever from Philip Roth and John Steinbeck and Kurt Vonnegut, and you go down the list, and they can take all those words and they'll be able to spit out something. And then you say, write a story about, you know, a golfer who becomes the president of the United States and whatever. You put all the prompts in, it will be able to craft a narrative and maybe it'll be pretty good. It's kind of a doomsday thought for a working writer, but that's probably not that far away. But nonfiction is different because the most important thing in my world is gathering information, through endless interviews. Like this Roy McIlroy book, I wake up every morning and I call somebody in Ireland and we talk for 2 hours, and the machines can't do that. Like,
yeah,
and framing it in a really thoughtful way, propelling the story forward, capturing all the nuance of Ireland versus Northern Ireland, um, of like understanding where he came along and at this moment, turning pro, right, was as Tiger's life was going up in flames and how
yeah.
that affected his view of celebrity. Like, there's so much complexity there that the machines will never be able to capture. So, um, fiction is going to be interesting to see how fiction changes. I think nonfiction will be largely insulated, but it's who knows. I mean, no one was talking about AI, even 5 years ago. I mean, it existed, it was a concept, but it was
Yeah.
not part of our everyday lives. It wasn't how people wrote, uh, business plans, and it wasn't how helping businesses across the board. So
Yeah.
it's just, you need a futurist, not a sports writer, to figure out what's going to happen with the media in the next quarter century. But um, good thinking, good writing, that's timeless.
Yeah. And just a couple more minutes, Alan. We got like at least five more questions. So, how is it coaching girls varsity basketball for Carmel High, and how'd you get involved?
Well, it's the greatest thing. We have a game against Seaside tonight. I gotta save my voice for. I'm gonna be hoarse. I'm gonna be trying to call out plays in the
Oh,
fourth
I'm sorry
quarter.
about that. You can
My
do
players aren't
signals.
gonna hear me. I'm gonna be, it's Derrick's fault. He made me talk for 2 hours. Um, but no, it's so much fun. I absolutely love it. It was really my daughter Abby. She's my middle daughter, and she's just a jock. And she got into basketball. I started coaching her YMCA team. Followed her to Carmel Middle School, then Carmel High School, and had so many wonderful memories with her and her friends. Um, and so she graduated, a year and a half ago now, and I took last year off from coaching. I had the first time in 8 years I hadn't coached, and I really missed it. I missed being in the gym and feeling like you're part of something larger. Like the
Yeah.
writing life can be lonely,
Yeah.
and building a team and that camaraderie and that common purpose, like that's a special thing.
Yeah.
Um, the adrenaline I get in the fourth quarter of a close game, it's really hard to replicate that in everyday life. Even though
Mhm.
I'm not on the court, like I'm so invested in these kids and what we're doing and what we're trying to build. Like my heart is pounding. That's a great feeling. And so I love it. And as I think it's an important kind of community service, especially on the girls' side, building like these badass young women who can compete and who can push themselves farther than they thought they could, and all the while having, being super coachable and being a great teammate. Like those are the people you're going to want in your boardroom or,
Yeah.
in the operating room. Like I think all these young women are going to do great things in their lives, and sports is going to be part of that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I love everything about it. And the X's and O's are fun, like mapping out the substitution patterns, instituting this new press. I've been working with the boys coach Kurt Grail. He's sort of mentoring me on that.
Yeah.
All the little wrinkles and all the adjustments you have to make in a game. Like it's very stimulating and fun.
Yeah. Fun fact, Mr. Grail was my I think pre-algebra or stats teacher at Salinas High School. So
Oh, that's amazing.
I connection.
Well,
Yeah.
he's very invested in the girls program because his daughter Ella is a sophomore. She's on my team, and then
Wow.
his daughter Grace is a freshman playing JV, and they're going to be a big part of Carmel High basketball here for the next 4 years. So he's we text a lot. I go in his classroom. We're on the whiteboard. He sends me videos. Like I'm not sure there's ever been this much collaboration between the boys and the girls programs, and it's great. He's obviously they won what 3 CCS titles in the last
Yeah.
6 years. Like he's a
Yeah.
great coach, so I'm happy to have him as a resource.
Now, are you still hearing like when you coach? Are you still hearing like Coach Chappell's voice in your head, or
Oh yeah, we run some of
totally?
the same drills,
Okay.
um, and some of his little maxims come out, and yeah, 100%. I had lunch with Coach Chappell before the season started with Kevin Price, my great friend who
Yeah.
he's coaching at the middle school now, at Carmel Middle School, and we picked Chappell's brain. I mean, he's seen it all, he's done it all. The game's evolved, but we're not playing like the 2016 Warriors. We're
Yeah.
not jacking up threes from the
Yeah.
half court line.
Yeah.
Like it's just good fundamental basketball. That's timeless. So yeah, no, Chappell's wisdom endures for sure.
What have you been thoughts on the Pasatiempo restoration? I know Pasatiempo just opened their full 18. I think
Yeah.
this week or a couple weeks ago.
Oh no, I was up there because we did a fire pit project kind of chronicling some of the
Yeah.
work, and I was in the dirt with Jim Urbina, the architect. It's and on I might go up there on the 18th or the 19th of December to go play it. It's going to be spectacular. I mean, Pasatiempo is one of the crown jewels of American golf. The fact that it's public, that it's so close to us, it's incredible. over time, golf courses evolve. Like every time someone hits a bunker shot, that sand gets splashed onto the green. You do that for year after year, the contours of the green actually changes. People don't really fully understand. And
Yeah.
after 100 years, some of those greens only really had one pin placement. They'd become so extreme, you just couldn't put the flag anywhere. It was unputtable. And so
Hmm.
now they've taken the greens back to what they were, and they're more interesting. There's you have multiple pin positions on every hole. Therefore, they can be better conditioned because when you have the flag in the same place day after day, the green gets chewed up. And it becomes more strategic when you can move the pin front left versus back right is totally different on some of these greens, and how you play it, the angle you want to approach from, maybe what club you hit off the tee. So it's a home run. I mean, everyone's always loved Passe Tiempo, but it's going to zoom up the rankings and be rightfully understood as one of the best courses in the world.
How was it like getting inducted into the Salinas Valley Sports Hall of Fame?
Oh yeah, that was funny. I don't know. This is the whole part of my whole speech was like, does a sports writer belong in an athletic hall of fame? Like, do we deserve that? Um, to me, it's more for like the people who are on the field, on the court. But at the same time, a huge part of sports is talking about sports, reading about sports, arguing about sports. That is the experience that we all live. And, sports writers have a big part of that. And so you couldn't really have sports without the sports media. It would just be
Mhm.
so different. And so if they want me to be in the Hall of Fame, like I'll take it. And it was cool. It was fun to see a lot of familiar faces and have my family there and all that. I still have my little medallion. I don't wear it out of the house, of course, but it's you'd rather be in the Hall of Fame than not be in the Hall of Fame. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, you got to protect the medallion like it's a green jacket, So.
Not quite, but I'll take it.
What will happen first in 2025? Tiger winning another major, Rory completed the Grand Slam at Augusta, Jordan winning the PGA to complete the Grand Slam, career Grand Slam, or the PGA and Live Golf merger finally happening.
Well, I think you can eliminate Tiger from consideration. His body's so broken. Spieth has looked totally lost. He just had wrist surgery,
Yeah.
so I think you can eliminate him. Um, Rory's in great form. Obviously, he's playing at a super high level. Whether he can ever transcend the scar tissue, that's the biggest question mark in golf. Like, can Rory learn how to win these tournaments again? Um, I think. Well, I think there's going to be a resolution between Live Golf and the PGA Tour. It doesn't mean that they're going to partner up. The resolution could be like, listen, we tried, it doesn't work, and we're walking away. And but I think we'll have a resolution one way or the other at some point in the first half of the year. So I don't know, Rory or resolution. I'll take Rory. I think I don't know. He's just too good. He's too good at golf. There's too much energy around him. I think he's gonna bust loose, but we've been saying that for a while now. So I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question, Derek. I'm kind of stumped.
Appreciate that. What will happen in your lifetime? Will UCLA win a national championship in football or basketball?
Oh,
Again,
oh, definitely basketball. The football program is UCLA is not going to have a good football program until they build a stadium on campus.
yeah, I agree.
It's such a rally kill. Well, first of all, we're on the quarter system. So by the time you get there in late September, the team's already played like 4 games,
Yeah.
And they usually lost two of them,
Mhm.
maybe more. And so it's already like there's no buzz around it. Like
Yeah.
you don't even feel connected. And then expect students to schlep out to the Rose Bowl, which is a million miles away.
Yeah.
And I don't condone underage drinking, but you got to drive out there. It curtails the tailgating, and it's just there's no energy on game day.
Yeah.
The Rose Bowl is great for the actual Rose Bowl. Every other football game is like a mausoleum. It's half full. It's
Yeah. Tarps up.
decrepit.
Yeah.
It sucks, and
Yeah.
so it's and you're trying to compete against like I've been to SEC football games like the feeling on game day, the intimacy of the stadiums right on campus, the pageantry, like yeah, 100% basketball.
Okay. What is the biggest advice you have for journalists who are trying to get a job?
Go to law school, um, maybe medical school. Um, no, I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, well, we kind of touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
You just you can create, in my day, you'd have to like get a job at a small newspaper and then try and work your way up to a mid-level newspaper and then to a big newspaper. And then if you were really lucky, you wind up at Sports Illustrated after 25 years. I mean, now you can come in the side door and create your own platform. You know, probably the most successful media brands in golf would be like the Fried Egg, No Laying Up,
Yeah.
Barstool Sports. None of them are traditional, or the Barstool Golf. None of them are traditional, and they just were kind of invented out of thin air. There's a certain alchemy involved and timing to explain that, but um, Jeff Shackelford's a big voice in golf. He
Yeah.
just sort of DIY is a blogger and now a Substacker. Like, so I don't know. The traditional path is less and less clear.
Hmm.
Um, if if you're in college, I'd say write for the student paper, do social media, do the school radio, like just try and learn as many skills and ways of storytelling. If you're already out in the world, you just got to grind really hard and find your niche, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I always ask this of all my guests. This is always my final question of the interview. What should the audience learn from your story today?
Well, I've spoken at a few kind of like middle school career days. I would say perseverance and preparation because when I met Mark Mulvoy, the managing editor of Sports Illustrated, on the first tee at Pebble Beach, I had I had just graduated high school, and I told him my dream in life was to write for Sports Illustrated, his magazine. And he was polite, but he kind of blew me off. This guy ran the greatest magazine in the world. What use does he have for an 18-year-old kid? None, as it turns out. But I used to write him a letter every few months, dear Mr. Mulvoy, I'm now at the Daily Bruin. I'm covering, women's rugby. I'm covering golf. I'm covering volleyball, whatever. And I'd send the letters. He never responded, not once. But he came out to Pebble Beach 2 years later, and I'd kept sending the letters. And he knew that. He was aware of their existence, even if you never acknowledged them. And that just showed a certain determination and desire. And so um, which he recognized. And so he gave me my internship, and that changed my whole life. And so, um, but as we talked about earlier, when I got to that internship, I knew what I was doing because I'd spent 10 years preparing, getting paid, $20 a story as a stringer at the Californian and writing for free for the school paper and the school yearbook. And so like I was in the right place at the right time, but I'd spent my whole life preparing for that moment and I was ready to take advantage of it. And so that's I guess that would be the lesson is if you believe you can be something special, like you have to chase it really hard and you have to be ready for that opportunity and you have to tenaciously chase that opportunity. And hopefully if you do all those things, then it'll work out and you'll get a medallion from the Salinas Valley Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for sure. And Alan, you've meant a lot to me, to my family, and I. You've always been supportive of every crazy dream I've had, and I'm just wanted to say thank you for always just being a good role model, a good mentor to me. You've always taken the time to just share advice or just to check in. And it's an honor to call you, a colleague, but also a friend as well. And we need to play golf together too. It's been a while. It's been like 9 years, I think. So
It's been
during
too
your
long.
busy schedule.
Well, I appreciate all that, Derek, and I'm proud of you. Like
Thank you.
you've come a long way, and you've carved out your career like with a lot of tenacity. So good on you. It's a thrill for me to be on your podcast. Like that's really cool. So
Yeah.
good for you.
All right, folks. That's Alan Shipnuck. He's got a lot of upcoming projects, and I'm sure we'll plug them all. But we'll be right back on the Chronicles from the Upper Deck podcast. Welcome back to the Chronicles from the Upper Deck podcast. My thanks goes out to Alan Shipnuck. And I forgot to mention his social medias, which you'll probably can find easily on X and on Instagram. He's at Alan Shipnuck, and you can find all of his work and his very comedic posts. And I know he'll be a busy man throughout this next year for his various projects. As a couple of his books are going to be hopefully you'll start seeing on your TV screen or in your movie screen near a theater near you. And yeah, like I said, Alan's been a great mentor of mine, and I know we will definitely get on the golf course sometime soon. So it should be a fun time next time I will see him in person. And I like to close it out. I like to close the show out with my brothers. We played the Good Better How Cup 3. And for those of you that don't know what that is a event that we do. Me and my brother JJ Sanchez decided to get all of our local first tee of Monterey County alumni, as you guys just saw that last image that we had. Just very grateful for my brotherhood, as I like to call it, my friends. So a group of us got together over the weekend and played at Poppy Hills Golf Course in Pebble Beach, and it was just a magical time. I think we live in such a digital world, and life takes all of us on various paths that you kind of miss hanging out together. You kind of miss those days of just playing golf together. And majority of us have played junior golf together, and two of the young kids in our group, Isaac and Onofre, we coached them at first tee, and we coached them during summer camps. So the fact that you get to relive kind of the glory days for 4.5 hours, 5 hours, and you get to see these kids that you coach turn into great young men and future leaders. What a blessing that is, and it was just an awesome time with great friends. We plan on continuing to do that. It's going to be a tradition, unlike any other, twice a year. I'm just very grateful, very, very grateful. I think the one of the few positive things that came out of the pandemic is just how important it is to hang out with each other, especially if you have close friends and you don't see them a lot. So for us to create this event, which we did a year ago in last December, and continue it on is a blessing. By the way, my team back to back wins. We went 6-2. We won 6-2, so we get the cup, but no trophy. JJ, what are you doing? You should listen to my advice, my brother. But we'll get the trophy on for next year. So again, thank you guys so much for your support of this program. Whether you're watching this on YouTube, watching this on Spotify, or listening to it on our various podcast platforms that we're on. Hopefully, you guys have a safe and awesome holiday season. And hopefully, you have a blessed new year. And if you guys have had a real shitty 2024, I know luck will be in your favor and you'll have an amazing 2025. Continue to stay safe, stay healthy, continue to be kind to one another, and hopefully, you guys enjoy this lovely time with your family and friends over the holiday season. I'm Derrick Al. You can now leave this audio and visual wonderland known as the Chronicles from the Upper Deck podcast. Take care.